Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode number 15 of our Vanilla Minecraft series. And at the end of last episode, I said that we were going to try and add something new to our island here, and unfortunately we're not actually going to do that today. I'm really excited for that project, especially after some of the testing I did, and we're going to get to do all kinds of really cool stuff with it that not a lot of people take advantage of. But unfortunately, it's also going to take a crazy amount of time to get to the point where I really want it to be. It's one of those projects that's going to involve tens of thousands of blocks. So we're going to try and do that next episode, hopefully. We'll see how much time I have next week, but this episode, we need to try and kind of take it a little bit easy, because this week's a little bit hectic for me. And we're actually going to head over to LimeLand and try and work out some details over there. Basically, I want to refine what we already have, work out some details for the area, stuff like that, just so it's kind of more prepared than it currently is. It feels a little bit more refined, and people can go and start building stuff there and kind of know what's going on. So that's going to be the main focus of today. But we're here on my island to start with because there's a couple more things I wanted to try out in this pond area that we worked on last time. So one of those things is over at the mudslide that we made. So, as you may recall, down a hillside right over here, we tried to make it look like there was kind of a mudslide, an overflow from a pond that kind of dislodged some of the hillside and made a flow of mud go down. And I think that looks okay, for the most part, but there's a couple things I want to try out. First off, I want to try and reshape it a little bit, because currently I just kind of went over the hill. Because in my head, I was like, oh, a mudslide, that goes over the top of the land, and, you know, that makes sense. But in this case, because the mud would be coming from this area itself, I think we want to kind of reshape the hill a little bit and make it look like this area kind of dislodged and came down here. So we want to try and expose a little bit more stone up there, reshape the hill a little bit, stuff like that. And I also want to try and integrate some brown concrete powder into this and see how that looks. I have no idea how I missed brown concrete powder in the blocks that I tested for this. Like, I even tested brown concrete, but for some reason, it didn't click in my head to try brown concrete powder, which is weird because I love the concrete powder blocks. I try to use them as often as I can, but for some reason, I just didn't think of it. Thankfully, you guys reminded me, so I'm going to go ahead and try that out. And there's also one other area. That's over by the waterfall that we added in. So that waterfall currently is kind of bland looking. And this is an inherent problem of having a free-falling waterfall where it just kind of drops down through the air. As cool as the idea is, in Minecraft it just ends up being a pillar of water. And there's not a whole lot you can do about that in situations like this. Like, if it was a lot taller, we could poke some rocks through and have it split off and stuff like that. But at this scale, there's not a whole lot we can do to change that, except for add in more terrain for it to bounce off of. So what I think we might try and do is add in a ledge right about here, kind of like we do on other parts of cliffs, like right here, for example. Just add a little bit of a ledge for the water to pour down on, and then have it move over, pour down again, go into this pond area, and then pour down again. Just so we don't have this long pillar right here, just to give it a little bit more shape, break it up a little bit more. And I think that'll help out a lot. In the worst case scenario, if that still doesn't look good, what we can probably get away with doing is building up kind of a mini cave. So you walk through a cave that's just a few blocks long right here, and there's stone kind of encompassing this whole area. I think that that would look okay, and it would give something for the water to kind of flow down and then over. And that's another option we could try out as well if the ledge doesn't work out. If none of those things work out, we can always just remove the waterfall and add in a tree or something like that. But for now, I'm going to try out the ledge thing, and I'm also going to try and modify our mudslide a little bit. We'll see how they look, and then we'll head over to LimeLand. So here's what our mudslide is looking like currently, and I think that's a lot nicer than it was before. We added in the concrete powder, so once again, thank you to those of you who reminded me to do that. It is a little bit lighter than I would like. I wish the color was just slightly darker, but it is nice. I think that it adds an extra bit of texture to it, especially from down here on the ground level, so I think that was a good thing to do. I also added in these stone buttons just to look like, you know, little bits of stone were washed down as well, and that's a really common trick, but it's one that I personally don't normally use, just because they're perfectly rectangular and they're always facing the same direction, so to me it's kind of hard to picture them as stones, but I think in a situation like this where it's just a big mess, I don't think they're too bad. So I think we'll probably keep those. I really wish there was a way to make it look like there was little sticks and stuff poking out, and unfortunately the only option for that, at least that I can think of, was the dead bushes, which I tried, but their texture is just a little bit too orange. They didn't really match, I don't think, at least to me. I also tried to make it look like the dirt from up top was actually swept down, as it logically would be. Obviously, we still have more material down here than would have come from the hill itself, but I think that helps. I did intend to make it look a little bit more indented than I ended up doing, but that's mostly because in order to indent this further, I would probably have to redo the entire side of the pond, and I'm kind of lazy. So I think this is okay, at least for the time being. It's one of those things I'll probably end up tweaking a bit in between, whenever I walk past it, really. But for right now, I think it'll do. So, if we head over this way, we can take a look at our waterfall as well, which I think is looking a little better. It wasn't a dramatic change in the end, not as dramatic as I originally intended, but I do think that helps it look a little bit more natural. So, before it would just kind of flow out and it was a too wide thing going straight down, which looked really boring. And then I went through several different revisions trying to find something that I really liked the look of. The first time I tried to make a big ledge with grass, similar to how we do other places, and the main issue with that one is that it was just too big, and it was starting to encroach into our walkway by the time I tried to kind of work it into the wall, which we can't really do because I do want this walkway to eventually become an actual usable path that leads to something. So we need to keep that walkway clear, so that really wasn't an option. I tried to make a smaller one where the kind of waterfall just came down and pooled a little bit and then came over, and that was okay, but still a little bulky, still a little weird looking. So I then tried this route where the waterfall just kind of runs down the cliff face a little bit and then pours down, and I think that's probably the best we're going to be able to do when it comes to a waterfall in this spot. We can try other things. I did, for example, have it kind of have two streams up top that joined together before it fell down, and honestly that looked okay, but it felt just a little bit busy. So, I don't know. I might, again, this is one of those things that I might be tweaking a little bit here and there, just sporadically whenever I happen to see something that throws me off a little bit. For example, I think that some of the stonework over here could use a little work as well. Hello, rain, yet again. So, with that, the nighttime and the rain, I think we're going to call the two changes we did here good, at least for now. And I'm going to move over to LimeLand, because like I said, that's the main focus today. So I want to work out a few things there. Hopefully we can get those sorted out and done with. Thank you, firework. And I'll bring you guys back in once we're there and ready to get going. Okay, so here we are approaching LimeLand, and the first issue that we really need to resolve is already quite apparent, at least I think so. And that's that we don't really have an entrance. We have our big sign, but because of the way that the sign is constructed, for all we know, it could just be drifting along. This might not even be LimeLand, who knows? And I think that that's kind of a big problem that we need to resolve. Because currently, you walk up here, and once you pass the sign, you're just kind of in a big open field. There's never a moment where you're like, okay, I am in LimeLand now. And obviously part of that is that we haven't built much here yet. In fact, the only thing we've built isn't even in view from right here. But I think the bigger thing is that there's never a point where you cross into LimeLand itself. There's never a specific line where you know you have crossed into the area. And I think we need to resolve that. So there's a couple things we could do. Obviously, putting a big fence or a wall or a border of some kind around the entire area would be probably the best signifier of what the area really is. And we might still do that. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I'll probably talk with you guys about that in a little bit. But I think the first thing we should do is set up something of an entrance right here. Now, I'm still a little bit unsure of what I really want to do with this, to be honest, which is unusual for me. Normally, I have these things planned out way in advance, but I've been toying with so many different ideas, I'm just really unsure of what I'm going to end up doing. So I actually need to go and continue messing with those ideas, try and pick something out, and I'm going to try and work out this entrance. I'm also going to try and pull this pathway in, because obviously that'll help a lot as well, having the path actually lead into the park itself. And maybe we'll even work out just the beginning of the path that LimeLand itself is going to have. Because we're not going to be going with these stone paths in there for sure. We're going to be going with the more messy dirt style. So maybe we'll work out just a little bit of that. Again, I don't want to figure out too many details of the paths until we have some builds started. But we'll do that, and maybe I'll even experiment with the wall and fence idea just a little bit, and then I'll be back with you guys. So here's our entrance for the time being, and you wouldn't think, with how simplistic this is, that it would have been complicated, and you'd be right, this build itself is very simple. But I spent hours trying to come up with something better than this, and for the life of me, I could not do it. Everything either felt like it would be kind of out of place, it would feel a little bit strange, or it was too big, or it was too bland, or something was wrong. I just couldn't for the life of me come up with anything that looked better than this. I tried arced pillars and archways and pillars that kind of swirled up, and I tried materials like concrete and terracotta and different wood types, and just all kinds of stuff like double helixes. Nothing really fit. And I think that the current choice is okay. I think that this works out. I think especially if we stick to our fairgrounds carnival theme, that having something simplistic like this makes the most sense, but I may still replace this completely if I can think of something better. So as always, if you have ideas for that, be sure to let me know. But that aside, as you can see, it's a little asymmetrical at the moment because I was experimenting with border fence designs as well. Now, I'm still a little unsure if I want to fence in the entire area, but I think it would probably be beneficial to do, just to try and keep out mobs a little bit more, because this area is super duper dangerous, and if we can prevent any creepers going off, especially once we start building more kind of redstone heavy minigames here, that would be beneficial. So we may do a really simple fence design like this one. I could obviously do something a little more grandiose and a little more interesting looking, but I don't know. I feel like that might actually clash with the theme if we have this huge monumental wall that goes, hundreds of blocks all over the place. So maybe something simple like this would be best. I kind of like this design. Over on this side, I was trying to do the banners kind of hanging down all along the way, and I think that would look cool other than the fact that banners start disappearing once you're 64 blocks away. So you reach over here and suddenly the banners are gone, and that means that unfortunately, no matter where we would be within LimeLand, this is basically what we would see like 90% of the way. We would just see the fences in the background, which is kind of a bummer. And of course that happens with the main gateway as well, which is a big reason why I think I may still redo this completely and try and put something a little more interesting on each side and then just get rid of the banners entirely. Because we have such a long walk going up here and you just see a fence the entire way until you get basically right up to it, which is a bit of a bummer. So we'll see if I ever do anything about that. But for right now, I think it looks at least acceptable, and we'll see how the future goes with regards to the entrance. As for the area out front, obviously that's still super bland. I have some ideas for that we'll get to in the future. We may link up to other stuff, or we could just put some naturey stuff here if we were lazy. But I do know that there is a multi-cave spider spawner that a few people on the server found recently right over here. So I don't know what they're doing with that, but maybe we'll connect up to that, and maybe we'll build like a horse stable for people to ride over, or some kind of transportation hub in order to get back and forth from spawn really quickly, using some interesting way to get around. I don't know. We'll see what happens out here. But that is the kind of entrance for LimeLand. We also worked on the path just a tiny bit, just to kind of give you guys the idea of what I'm thinking. And I know this is really kind of bland looking, and honestly, it's supposed to be. Like, once we add in fences and some shrubbery and maybe a couple trees here and there along the sides, it'll look a little bit more lively. But more importantly, I think the paths should just serve as a way to get to the more interesting builds, rather than trying to kind of distract from them. So I think that the path being simple is probably a good thing. Anyway, that is what all we're going to do for the entrance of LimeLand, at least for today. Obviously, like I said, we have tons left to do over here. But for right now, I want to go over to our witch arena that we built before and dress that area up just a little bit as well. So, here we are at our totally safe, totally not dangerous witch arena build that we did right back when LimeLand started. And as you can tell, this place is far from finished aesthetically. So there's a lot of stuff we want to do yet, but as I said back when we made this, we don't want to go too crazy with it and try and decorate the entire area, because that could interfere with stuff that might want to get built there eventually. Like, if someone wants to build on the top of this hill and involve the hillside and do some kind of minigame or something, then we don't want to try and cover everything up with trees and bushes and all that stuff right now, because it would get in the way. So what we can do is decorate the area immediately around the witch arena. And then in the future, once stuff gets built up a little bit more, we can kind of work out the little details in between. But as for the decorations we can do with the witch arena itself, I think the main thing we want to do is put a fence around the entire thing with one opening over here next to a ticket booth. So the idea is that you'll be able to watch the witch fights from afar, but if you want to go in and sit in the bleachers and get a front row seat to the witch carnage, you'll have to go and get a ticket and go in. So that's at least the idea. I think that'll give us a little bit more of an extra detail, and we can add all kinds of cool little things to it. I'm also going to try and get rid of all of the torches in the area, like within the boundary of our witch arena, at least as best I can, to kind of make things a little bit better looking. And obviously I'm also going to try and move that button, because trying to get to that button without getting potioned in the face is quite difficult. So if we move that over, probably right next to the ticket booth or even inside it or something along those lines, then we should be good. We should be able to, hit it and get the witches fighting each other without having to take a poison potion to the face ourselves. So I'm going to get to all of that, and I'll bring you guys back in once we're done. So here's what our witch arena turned out like, and honestly that looks a whole lot better than I thought it was going to. I didn't think that these little details would make this much of a difference, but honestly, to me at least, it feels a lot more in place now. It feels like this was built here for a reason, and it's actually intentionally here, rather than just being plopped down randomly in a field like it was before, which, to be fair, it really was. So I went through, added in more dirt, and kind of messed things up a little bit more, even brought it out past the fence on this one side, just because I feel like people would probably crowd around the fence to sneak peeks of the witch fight, So I think that having dirt here makes sense. We also added in a ticket booth, complete with a little ticket master guy, which I like a lot. We moved the bell over here so you can ring it without getting poisoned in the face. And we even have some advertisement banners for the witch fight, which I think they turned out kind of cool. I don't think you can really represent witches better than this on a banner, at least a legitimate banner, unless you have a creeper face. I think if you have a creeper face, you might be able to make the witch have a bit of a head. But I think for right now, they're doing pretty good. So, that is our Witch Arena 100% complete, at least until we can do the outside detailing stuff a little bit more. That is, aside from one very important detail, which is that I still haven't given these two witches proper names. Now, when we built this place a couple episodes ago, I asked you guys to give me name suggestions, and quite a lot of you did, so thank you for that. And a lot of them were really, really good suggestions. Of course, there were a lot of funny ones. There were puns based on boxing names and stuff like that. There was Witchy Mixed Witch Face because we're on the internet, and of course that has to be a suggestion. But there were three in particular. Three that used witch names that were like related to each other that I really, really liked the themes of. So one of those would be Glinda versus Zelina, which is the Good Witch versus the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz. So that makes sense. The next one would be Kome versus Kotake, which would be the two witches in The Legend of Zelda. There's these twin witches, one's fire and one's ice, and they, I believe they're recurring characters throughout the series. And we could name one witch after each of those. That would be a really cool reference to have, I think. And the third option would be Scarlet Witch versus Enchantress, which the names themselves aren't very exciting, but that's actually a Marvel hero versus a DC hero, which I actually really like because that means that we have a reason to root for one witch over the other. Because it's the classic Marvel versus DC war, so, you know, everyone has the witch they want to win, which gives us a reason to root for one versus the other, and I think that's really, really cool. But that being said, I like all three options, so I don't know which one to pick. And as is usually the case when I'm too lazy to pick myself or incapable of doing so, I'm going to defer the responsibility to you guys. So, I am going to put a poll up on the video somewhere. I think in the top right corner of your screen, assuming I can do this correctly. I have no idea. I've never tried before. But in the top right corner of your screen, there should be a little eye icon. If you click that, there should be the three options that I just described. You should be able to click one and then click vote. And whichever one gets the most votes by the time we have to name our witches, whenever that happens to be, I will go with those names. And whatever option, I like all of them, so it should be good. So if you guys can do that, obviously you don't have to if you couldn't care less about the witch names, but I would love it if you would do it for me. Then that'd be great. Anyway, that is our Witch Arena complete. Now, while I was working on this, I did think of some other cool stuff we can try out at the entrance of LimeLand to try and make that look a little more interesting. But that is going to be in the future. Hopefully the distant future, because next episode I really want to get back to my island and work on the project we were supposed to be doing today. Now, I have to go and take care of a lot of stuff before that happens, so I'm going to go and get to it. But I want to thank you guys for watching all the way to the end, as usual. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you guys next time. Am I going to die? Ow. Almost. See you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.